Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to the Monday Morning Cup of Mo. I'm Michael Mowbray. I'm the Mo in the Cup of Mo. That doesn't sound right either. Uh, that's one of the fun things about doing this live is, hey, I'm going to screw up constantly. So if I make any sense whatsoever, we're winning, right? It's going to give a few minutes for people to get into the room so we can start talking in detail about our subject today. And our subject today is talking about TTL. Understanding TTL and how to use it with flash, how the flash interacts with the camera, all that kind of stuff. It's one of the major issues that people come to me and talk to me about and ask me about when I speak or when I write and stuff like that. Trying to figure out how TTL works. And one of the major things people say is it's really inconsistent and doesn't work. Well, I'm going to kind of bust down some of those myths and help give you a better understanding of just really how TTL works, and hopefully it's something you can incorporate into your workflow. So hopefully you're grabbing your coffee. This morning I went with a nice little French press. Yeah, I'm that fancy. I think it's a dark Guatemalan, so yes. Here in Wisconsin it is gray and blah. So kind of looks like November, so looking like November and December. Not so bad. Broadcasting here from my studio in DeForest, Wisconsin, just outside Madison. And this is where all the magic happens. So lame. Anyway, it looks like we got a few people in the room, so let's start talking about today's topic. TTL. A lot of people just don't get how it works. And yeah, I'm starting to read some of the stuff coming up. Nice. Sorry, someone just cracked me up. Anyway, TTL. It's something that's really hard for people to understand, and when you don't understand something, you tend to not use it. So nothing wrong with using manual flash. Let me just get that right out there. But there are times when TTL just kind of makes more sense. And if you understand it really well, it can be something that you can work with very quickly. Especially if you're dealing with situations where the lighting is constantly changing. Perfect example, weddings. I do a lot of weddings. I photograph a lot of weddings. I photograph a lot of seniors. I do a lot of studio work as well. Do I shoot TTL in the studio? No. Because when I'm in a studio, I'm in a more precise, controlled environment. And quite often I'm photographing the same lighting kind of set up for multiple images, and there I can get in and use a light meter, set my flash manually, and that makes the most sense. Do I photograph seniors in TTL? For the most part, no, because again, I'm more in a portrait environment. In the studio, definitely not. Outside, most of the time not. Sometimes yes, though. Weddings, however, whole different animal. And do I do TTL? Most of the day, yes. Shooting TTL for candids because lighting conditions are constantly changing. And our cameras, what we're spending for in our cameras, our $3,500 Canon 5D Mark IIIs and our $500 Canon 600 flashes. What are we paying for? We're paying for a lot of the intelligence that's built into that. If you don't need that intelligence, then you go to something like my Mo lights. My Mo lights are dumb flashes. They're manual flashes, and they're cheap. And that's what they're built for. They're built to be like a tank that you can use for really easy manual flash. But if you're going to TTL, you need something that's got the brain inside of it. And let's talk a little bit how that brain works. Built inside your camera is a reflective light meter. And a reflective light meter really has one prime directive. And it's not so much to measure the light. It does measure the light reflected off your subject, but it has a prime directive beyond that. And that prime directive is to turn everything it sees into a balanced exposure. Now, we need to understand what it means, what it thinks a balanced exposure is. A balanced exposure means it wants to make everything 50% gray, or middle gray, or zone 5, if you're in a zone system. It wants to put everything there. Now, it has no idea. Your camera, your flash, your system has no idea what it is you're photographing. It doesn't know if you're photographing a landscape. It doesn't know if you're photographing a polar bear on a white field of snow. It doesn't know if you're photographing a black panther on black velvet, which sounds like a poster I had in high school. Anyway, Black Panther! Anyway, it doesn't know. So in its mind, in your camera's mind, it thinks that A balanced exposure is to shove everything into the middle of the histogram. So what's it going to do? If you're photographing that polar bear on the white ice and white snow, or maybe a more relevant example, a pale blonde bride in a white wedding dress near a white wall, what it wants to do is it wants to turn her into middle gray. So what's it going to do? It's going to shove those whites into the middle of the histogram, and they're going to look muddy and underexposed. This is where we start to get into, well, I try TTL, and TTL is inconsistent, it doesn't work. Well, if you photograph that bride in one shot, in the next shot, maybe her groom is African American, and he's wearing a black tux with a black shirt against a black wall. What's it going to do? It's going to try to make him middle gray as well. It's going to overexpose him, okay? So we need to know that that's what our camera and our flash are trying to do, is they're taking a look at the situation, and they're just reading it as tones and reading that light being reflected off the subject, and they're going to take that and try to shove everything in the middle gray. You know, take a look at what I got on. I've got like a black shirt on with a little bit of white. I'm kind of pale. I might average out. I might average out to be about middle gray-ish, and it might give a pretty decent exposure there. But again, in the examples I was using, which are more extremes, which we deal with all the time. We're dealing with extremes all the time on wedding days. We've got that white dress, and man, that white dress is one big reflector. It's kicking a lot of light back at the camera, and it just wants to make that middle gray. Okay, so understand that. So we have to be a little bit smarter than our camera. Gosh forbid, you know, we have to actually think. We can't just put it on P for professional. We have to think a little bit. And we have to be looking through that viewfinder and say, hey, brain, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of white tones, okay? So if I'm in any sort of auto mode, say I'm on aperture priority or I'm using TTL flash, I need to understand and recognize I'm seeing mostly white tones. I need to kick out a little bit more light in order to get the proper exposure. The proper exposure. What's the proper exposure? We determine that. What do we want to render this scene as? I want to render that dress as being white with detail. White with detail somewhere in zone 8 if you're in a zone system, okay? That's where I want to be, okay? So knowing that, we know that we got to kick out a little bit more light. And that's where we get into something called flash exposure compensation. So when we're working with TTL flash on top of the camera, Canon, Nikon, off-brand, anything, you can dial in what's called FEC, or flash exposure compensation. And what that says is, hey, flash, hey, camera, I'm smarter than you. I need more light. So in the situation like I described, I've got that pale blonde bride in the white dress with a white wall. I'm going to tell my flash to give me a stop and 2/3 to 2 stops more light. That way I take her out of middle gray and pull her up into whites with detail. And that's the magic combination. Now, it does take extra thought, it does take an extra step. But you start to think about this a little bit more and understanding how TTL works, you can automatically start to do this kind of stuff. Now, similar situation. We've got the African American groom and the black tux with the black shirt near the black wall. Okay? What do we need to do? We need to tell our flash to give us less flash. Okay? Because it wants to give out more, and it's going to try to overexpose that situation. So having this understanding of how TTL works and how your camera sees things. Now, this, we're not going to get into detail about which metering mode and how it works in different metering modes, although I will say I have found when working with flash in TTL, the evaluative metering mode tends to work best in most modern cameras. That's just my opinion. That's what I've used. I've gotten the best results out of that. So let's just show a quick example. Hard to show here on an iPhone. That's what we're broadcasting with. So let's just take a quick look. Let's see if I can. We're going to mix technologies here. See if this works. Whoa, look at that overexposure. There we go. See, my iPhone's trying to TTL this thing. Anyway, situation here. So we've got a senior in like a white prom dress on an old cool truck. Shot this at a workshop down at Cindy Romano's place in Illinois. And the situation we're dealing with here is we've got the sun behind her. Okay? Purposely putting the sun behind her because I want to use the sun as edge light. I want to use the sun as rim light and as a kicker. So what's that going to do? It's going to totally underexpose the front, right? Now, I'm working with TTL flash here. My camera takes a look at this scene And what it sees is it sees all that bright sky, and it sees that white dress. So what it's going to do is it's going to automatically underexpose. I'm shooting this in aperture priority. I like to work with aperture priority outside quite a bit. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a future episode when I start to talk about high-speed sync and things like that. But I'm working in aperture priority here, and my camera is going to automatically underexpose the scene because it's seeing all that white dress and all that bright sky. So what I need to do with my off-camera flash, I'm working with 2 Canon speedlights off-camera here, over to camera right, and I'm working with my on-camera flash firing a little bit of fill too. So I'm firing 3 speedlights here, bare speedlights, not modified at all. And I told them to give me 2 stops more light. And what that allowed me to do is allowed me to also turn my ambient down a little bit. I turned my ambient down by a third. I had a phone call come in. I had to say, no, I can't take your phone call right now. So anyway, I turned my ambient down a little bit there, and by about third stop allowed me to be able to darken that sky, and then kicking in 2 stops more flash gave me the proper exposure, not the balanced exposure, the proper exposure, where I'm putting her into the tones where I need her to be, where she pops out of this background. Background's not entirely plugging on me, yet I'm still able to darken that sky. So this is the kind of thing we face all day for weddings, the kind of thing we face when we take seniors outside in the middle of the afternoon. It's one of the things that people always ask me about is, how do you go out in the middle of the day working with full sun and make things work? Well, a lot of it's just working with TTL and understanding how TTL works. All kinds of examples of that. It's one of the main reasons why I wrote this book. This was my first book. It's called Shoot to Thrill. And what it is it's 60 different examples. Most of these are showing how to use TTL. So it shows the image, shows the final image, and gives a breakdown, including lighting diagrams and all the technical detail, all the creative thought, what I was trying to do with this. This is all put together into this book, and it's all in like bite-sized details. Here's a similar shot, though, a similar situation. Here I'm at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by the lake. And it's a common thing I find when I'm photographing weddings here in Madison. We've got 2 beautiful lakes, and everybody wants to go down by the lake. Well, I know when I'm out there in full sun, if I photograph and I set my exposure for the bride's face without any flash, I'm going to blow out the sky, I'm going to blow out the water. The problem with that is, what color is the sky and the water in that bride's world? Well, the sky and the water in that bride's world are blue, right? So we need to be able to maintain that blue. And how we do that is we underexpose the ambient, and we kick in a little TTL flash. We tell that flash to kick up a little bit above what it thinks it should give me. I'm able to get some nice light into that dress, and I'm able to get a proper exposure. So, TTL. Understand, TTL, its only job is to work in with that reflective light meter built into your camera, and that's only job is to turn everything it sees into middle gray. So understand the scene you're photographing, and if you're looking for brighter tones, you need to add a little bit more light, and you need to tell your flash to give you more light. If you're dealing with mostly darker tones, you need to say, give me a little bit less light. You start to work with that, you're taking your game up to the next level, and you're able to understand how TTL works. Because everybody who says TTL is inconsistent, I have found it anything but. Once you understand how it works, it does its job consistently. The problem is the job that it does is not always the result that you want. Okay, so we got that? That's TTL. We're going to be giving these bite-sized pieces. Sometimes we're going to be doing demos. Sometimes we're going to be going a little bit longer. We're going to do this every Monday. It's your Monday morning cup of Mo. We're going to do this at 9 o'clock. I'm also recording this broadcast, so I'm going to be putting it out to my website. My website is, it's on this side of the cup. There we go. It's michaelmowbray.com, M-O-W-B-R-A-Y. Also, if you go there, we have expanded blog posts and details and education, all that kind of stuff. I also have my MoLight store, where I sell my own brand of flashes and my brand new GoMo softboxes, which are selling like hotcakes. And again, I've never bought a hotcake, but man, evidently they're selling like hotcakes. So check that out. check out my books online on Amazon. Just look up Michael Mowbray and you can see the books I've got out there. Published by the wonderful people at Amherst Media. Thank you guys. And again, a rebroadcast of this will be available here through Periscope for the next 24 hours. And then I will be posting a recorded version of this to my website. And onto YouTube as well. So I feel like we're giving a lot of good information out here. I hate to have it just die after 24 hours. It's great when you tune in live because you get to see any weird stuff that happens that I might edit out later. So the recorded version will be going online. Also, last point, looking for ideas. I mean, I've got mapped out quite a few shows that I want to do, but I'm looking for what you guys want to learn. And there's something to do with speedlights, something to do with lighting, something to do with really anything with photography. Shoot me a message. You can contact me on Facebook. Shoot me a Facebook message. I'm Michael Mowbray. It's very easy. On Twitter, Michael Mowbray. Here through Periscope, Michael Mowbray. Jumped in very early on all the social media to make sure that I got my name in there. So you can contact me through those. I'll also be putting something out on my website where you can submit ideas. Haven't had time to do that yet. My website is michaelmowbray.com. And if I choose your idea and base a show on it, guess what you get? You get your very own cup of Mo. Ooh, you got to put your own coffee in there, though, okay? So we'll send you the cup. So shoot those ideas at me. Happy to help out. Hopefully I helped you all, give you some ideas today that you can implement into your own workflow. This has been the Monday Morning Cup of Mo, episode 2. Hopefully we can keep this rolling for a long time. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, and we'll see you again next week.